The ancient Bulgarians were actually not settled in modern Bulgarian territory, but near the Urals in Russia. But the Asian migrations made the peoples travel to the Eastern Balkans where they reside now. The first people to leave lasting traces and cultural heritage throughout the region were the Thracians. Their origin remains obscure. It is generally proposed that a Proto-Thracian people developed from a mixture of indigenous peoples and Indo-Europeans from the time of Proto-Indo-European expansion in the early Bronze Age, when the latter, around 1500 BC, conquered the indigenous peoples. Thracian craftsmen inherited the skills of the indigenous civilizations before them, especially in gold working. The Thracians were generally disorganized but had an advanced culture despite the lack of their own proper script, and gathered powerful military forces when the divided tribes formed unions under the pressure of external threats. They formed the Odrysian kingdom. Although the concept of an urban center was not developed until the Roman period, various larger fortifications, which also served as regional market centers, were numerous. Yet, in general, despite Greek colonization in such areas as Byzantium, Apollonia, and other cities, the Thracians avoided urban life. The first Greek colonies in Thrace were founded in the 8th century BC. Ever since the Macedonian king Amycus I surrendered his country to the Persians in about 512 to 511 BC, Macedonians and Persians were strangers no more. Subjugation of Macedonia was part of Persian military operations initiated by Darius the Great. In 513 BC, after immense preparations, a huge Achaemenid army invaded the Balkans to try to defeat the European Scythians roaming to the north of the Danube River. Darius' army subjugated several Thracian peoples in virtually all over the regions that touched the European part of the Black Sea, such as parts of nowadays Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, and Russia, before it returned to Asia Minor. Darius left in Europe one of his commanders named Megabazus, whose task was to accomplish conquests in the Balkans. Following the Ionian Revolt, the Persian hold over the Balkans loosened but was firmly restored in 492 BC through the campaigns of Mardonius. The Balkans, including what is nowadays Bulgaria, provided many soldiers for the multi-ethnic Achaemenid army. Several Thracian treasures dating from the Persian rule in Bulgaria have been found. Most of what is today Eastern Bulgaria remained firmly under the Persian sway until 479 BC. The Persian garrison at Doriscus in Thrace held out for many years, even after the Persian defeat, and reportedly never surrendered. It remained as the last Persian stronghold in Europe. Thracian tribes remained divided, and most of them fell under nominal Persian rule from the late 6th century until the first half of the 5th century, until King Teres united most of them under the Odrysian kingdom around 470 BC, probably after the Persian defeat in Greece, which later peaked under the leadership of King Sitilces and of Codus I. This Thracian kingdom thrived between the early 5th century and the early 3rd century in the late 1st century BC. Located in present-day Bulgaria, southeastern Romania, northeastern Greece, and European Turkey, it was a tribal amalgam dominated by the Odrysians that was the first large political entity to develop in the Eastern Balkans. Before the foundation of Scythopolis in the late 4th century, it had no fixed capital. Similar to the Gauls and other Celtic tribes, most Thracians are thought to have lived simply in small fortified villages, usually on hilltops. At the commencement of the Peloponnesian War, Sitilces entered into alliance with the Athenians, and in 429 BC he invaded Macedon, with a vast army that included 150,000 warriors from independent Thracian tribes. Codus I, on the other hand, went to war with the Athenians for the possession of the Thracian Chersonese. Thereafter, the Macedonian Empire incorporated the Odrysian kingdom, and Thracians became an inalienable component in the extra-continental expeditions of both Philip II and Alexander III, which is Alexander the Great. In 298 BC, Celtic tribes reached what is today Bulgaria and clashed with the forces of Macedonian king Cassander on Mount Haemos. The Macedonians won the battle, but they did not stop the Celtic advancement. Many Thracian communities, weakened by the Macedonian occupation, fell under Celtic dominance. In 279 BC, one of the Celtic armies, led by Comontorius, attacked Thrace and succeeded in conquering it. Comontorius established the kingdom of Tylis in what is now eastern Bulgaria. The modern-day village of Tulovo bears the name of the relatively short-lived kingdom. Cultural interactions between Thracians and Celts are evidenced by several items containing elements of both cultures, such as the chariot of Mizek and almost certainly the Gundestrup cauldron. Tylis lasted until 12 BC, when the Thracians managed to regain their dominant position in the region and disbanded it. Small bands of Celts survived in western Bulgaria. One such tribe were the Surdi, from which Serdica, the ancient name of Sofia, originates. Even though the Celts remained in the Balkans for more than a century, their influence on the peninsula was modest. By the end of the 3rd century, the new threat appeared for the people of the Thracian region in the shape of the Roman Empire. In 188 BC, the Romans invaded Thrace, and warfare continued until 46 AD, when Rome finally conquered the region. The Sapaean kingdom was an ancient Thracian state in the southeastern Balkans that existed from the middle of the 1st century BC until 46 AD. Succeeding the classical and Hellenistic era Odrysian kingdom of Thrace, it was dominated by the Sapaean tribe, who ruled from the capital Bize and was now northwestern Turkey. Initially only of limited relevance, its power grew significantly in the ancient Roman world as a client state of the late Roman Republic. After the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Octavian installed a new dynasty that proved to be highly loyal and expansive, conquering and ruling much of Thrace on behalf of the Roman Empire. It lasted until 46 AD, when Emperor Claudius annexed the kingdom and made Thracia into a Roman province. In 46 AD, the Romans established a province of Thracia. By the 4th century, the Thracians had a composite indigenous identity as Christian Romans who preserved some of their ancient pagan rituals. Thraco-Romans became a dominant group in the region and eventually yielded several military commanders and emperors such as Galerius and Constantine I. Urban centers became well developed, especially the territories of Sofia. Due to the abundance of mineral springs, the influx of immigrants from around the empire enriched the local cultural landscape. Temples of Osiris and Isis have been discovered near the Black Sea coast. Sometime before 300 AD, Diocletian further divided Thracia into 4 smaller provinces. In the 4th century, a group of Goths arrived in northern Bulgaria and settled in and around Nicopolis ad Istrum. There, the Gothic bishop translated the Bible from Greek to Gothic, creating the Gothic alphabet in the process. This was the first book written in the Germanic language, and for this reason, at least one historian refers to the bishop as the father of Germanic literature. The first Christian monastery in Europe was founded in 344 by Saint Athanasius near modern-day Chirpin, following the Council of Serdica. Due to the rural nature of the local population, Roman control of the region remained weak. In the 5th century, Attila's Huns attacked the territories of today's Bulgaria and pillaged many Roman settlements. By the end of the 6th century, Avaros organized regular insurgencies into northern Bulgaria, which were a prelude to the en masse arrival of the Slavs. During the 6th century, the traditional Greco-Roman culture was still influential, but Christian philosophy and culture were dominant and began to replace it. In the 7th century, Greek became the predominant language in the Eastern Roman Empire's administration. Church and society replacing Latin, the Slavs emerged from the local homeland in the early 6th century and spread to most of Eastern Europe, and the Balkans, thus forming 3 main branches: the West Slavs, the East Slavs, and the South Slavs. The easternmost South Slavs settled in the territory of modern Bulgaria during the 6th century. Most of the Thracians were eventually Hellenized or Romanized, with some exceptions surviving in remote areas until the 5th century. A portion of the eastern South Slavs was assimilated, most of them, before the Bulgarian elite incorporated these peoples into the First Bulgarian Empire. The Bulgars were a semi-nomadic people of Turkic descent, originally from Central Asia in the Urals, who from the 2nd century onwards dwelled in the steppes north of the Caucasus and around the banks of river Volga. A branch of them gave rise to the First Bulgarian Empire. The Bulgars were governed by hereditary khans. There were several aristocratic families, whose members bearing military titles formed the governing class. Bulgars were polytheistic, but chiefly worshipped the supreme deity Tengra, unified under a single ruler, Kurt or Kobrat. The Bulgars constituted a powerful polity known to the Eastern Romans as Great Bulgaria. This country was situated between the lower course of the Danube River to the west, the Black Sea, and the Azov Sea to the south, the Kievan River to the east, and the Donets River to the north. The capital was Phanagoria on the Azov. In 635, Kubra signed a peace treaty with Emperor Heraclius of the Byzantine Empire, expanding the Bulgar kingdom further into the Balkans. Later, Kubrat was crowned with the title Patrician by Heraclius. The kingdom never survived Kubrat's death. After several wars with the Khazars, the Bulgarians were finally defeated and they migrated to the south, to the north, and mainly to the west, into the Balkans. where most of the other Bulgarian tribes were living, in the state vassal to the Byzantine Empire since the 5th century. One of the successors of Khan Kotrag led 9 Bulgarian tribes to the north along the banks of the river Volga in what is today Russia, creating the Kingdom of the Volga Bulgars in the late 7th century. This kingdom later became the trade and cultural center of the north because it stood on a very strategic position, creating a monopoly over the trade among the Arabs, the Norse, and the Avars. The Bulgars were the first to ever defeat the Mongolic horde and protected Europe for decades. But after countless Mongol invasions, the kingdom of the Volga Bulgars was destroyed, and most of its citizens slaughtered or sold slaves in Asia. Another successor of Khan Kubrat, Aspara, moved west, occupying today's southern Bessarabia. After a successful war with Byzantium in 680, Aspara's Khanate conquered initially Scythia Minor and was recognized as an independent state under the subsequent treaty signed with the Byzantine Empire in 681. That year is usually regarded as a year of the establishment of present-day Bulgaria, and Aspara is regarded as the first Bulgarian ruler. Another Bulgar horde, led by Aspara's brother Kubur, came to settle in Pannonia and later into the region of Macedonia. Under the reign of Aspara, Bulgaria expanded southwest after the Battle of Ongol, and Danubian Bulgaria was created. During the late Roman Empire, several Roman provinces covered the territory that comprised present-day Bulgaria: Moesia, Thrace, Macedonia, Dacia, Dardania, Rhodope, and Hemispinus, and had a mixed population of Byzantine Greeks, Thracians, and Dacians, most of whom spoke either Greek or variants of Vulgar Latin. Several consecutive waves of Slavic migration throughout the 6th and the early 7th centuries led to a dramatic change of the demographics of the region and its almost complete Slavicization. The Bulgarians are also known for raiding and burning Constantinople many times, but never conquered it. Under the reign of Krum, Bulgaria established vastly in northwest and south, occupying the lands between the Male Danube and Moldova rivers, all of present-day Romania, Sofia in 809, and Adrianople in 813, and threatening Constantinople itself. Krum implemented law reform intending to reduce poverty and strengthen social ties in its vastly enlarged state. During the reign of Khan Omertag, the northwestern boundaries with the Frankish Empire were mostly settled along the Middle Danube. A magnificent palace, pagan temples, ruler's residence, fortress, citadel, water mains, and baths were built in the Bulgarian capital of Pliska, mainly of stone and brick. Omertag pursued policy of repression against Christians. A certain person glorifies Emperor Basil II, showing him as a warrior defending Orthodox Christendom against the attacks of the Bulgarian Empire, whose attacks on Christians were graphically illustrated. Under Boris I, Bulgaria became officially Christian. Leaders devised the Gothic alphabet, which was adopted in the Bulgarian Empire around 886. The alphabet and the Old Bulgarian language that evolved from Slavonic gave rise to a rich literary and cultural activity centered around the pre-Slav and Old literacy schools, established by order of Boris I in 886. In the early 9th century, a new alphabet, Cyrillic, was developed at the pre-Slav literature school, adapted from the Gothic alphabet invented by Saints Cyril and Methodius. An alternative theory is that the alphabet was devised at the Ohrid literacy school by Saint Clement of Ohrid, a Bulgarian scholar and disciple of Cyril and Methodius. By the late 9th and early 10th centuries, Bulgaria extended to Epirus and Thessaly in the south, Bosnia in the west, and controlled all of present-day Romania and eastern Hungary to the north, reuniting with old roots. A Serbian state came into existence as a dependency of the Bulgarian Empire. Under Tsar Simeon I of Bulgaria, who was educated in Constantinople, Bulgaria became again a serious threat to the Byzantine Empire. His aggressive policy was aimed at displacing Byzantium as major partner of the nomadic policies in the area. By subverting the principles of Byzantine diplomacy and political culture, Simeon turned his own kingdom into a society structuring factor in the nomadic world. Simeon hoped to take Constantinople and become emperor of both Bulgarians and Greeks, and fought a series of wars with the Byzantines through his long reign. At the end of his rule, the front had reached the Peloponnese in the south, making it the most powerful state in contemporary southeast Europe. Simeon proclaimed himself Tsar of the Bulgarians and the Romans, a title which was recognized by the Pope but not by the Byzantine Emperor. The capital Preslav was said to rival Constantinople. The new independent Bulgarian Orthodox Church became the new Patriarchate, besides the Pentarchy, in Bulgarian translations of Christian texts, spread all over the Slavic world of the time. During the reign of Emperor Peter I, a heretical movement known as Bogomilism arose in Bulgaria. The heresy was named after its founder and the priest Bogomil, whose name can be translated as dear to God. The main sources about Bogomism in Bulgaria come from a letter of the ecumenical patriarch Theophylact of Constantinople to Peter I, a treatise by Cosmas the priest and the anti-Bogomil Council of Emperor Bovril of Bulgaria. Bogomilism was a neo-Gnostic and dualist sect that believed that God has two sons, Jesus Christ and Satan, that represented the two principles good and evil. God has created light in the invisible world, while Satan rebelled and created darkness, the material world and man. Decline after the Simon's death, Bulgaria was weakened by external and internal wars with Croatians, Magyars, Pechenegs, and Serbs, and the spread of the Bogomil heresy. 2 consecutive Rus and Byzantine invasions resulted in the seizure of the capital of Preslav by the Byzantine army in 971. Under Samuel, Bulgaria somewhat recovered from these attacks and managed to conquer Serbia and Dukla, which is present-day Montenegro. Bulgaria, under the rule of Tsar Samuel in 986, the Byzantine Emperor Basil II undertook a campaign to conquer Bulgaria. After a war lasting several decades, he inflicted a decisive defeat upon the Bulgarians in 1014 and completed the campaign 4 years later. In 1018, after the death of the last Bulgarian Tsar, most of Bulgaria's nobility chose to join the Eastern Roman Empire. However, Bulgaria lost its independence and remained subject to Byzantium for more than a century and a half. With the collapse of the state, the Bulgarian church fell under the domination of Byzantine ecclesiastics. No evidence remains of major resistance or any uprising of the Bulgarian population or nobility in the first decade after the establishment of Byzantine rule. Basil II guaranteed the indivisibility of Bulgaria in its former geographic borders and did not officially abolish the local rule of the Bulgarian nobility, who became part of Byzantine aristocracy as archons or strategoi. Secondly, special charters of Basil II recognized the autocephaly of the Bulgarian Archbishopric of Ohrid and set its boundaries, securing the continuation of a diocese already existing under Samuel, their property, and other privileges. After the death of Basil II, the empire entered into a period of instability. In 1040, Peter Delian organized a large-scale rebellion but failed to restore the Bulgarian state and was killed. Shortly after, the Komnenos dynasty came under succession and halted the decline of the empire. During this time, the Byzantine state experienced a century of stability and progress. Resurrected Bulgaria occupied the territory between the Black Sea, the Danube, the Stara Planina, including a part of eastern Macedonia, Belgrade, and the valley of the Morava. It also exercised control over Wallachia, and he waged wars on the Byzantine Empire and on the Knights of the Fourth Crusade, conquering large parts of Thrace, the Rhodopes, Bohemia, and Moldavia, as well as the whole of Macedonia. In the Battle of Adrianople in 1205, Kaloyan defeated the forces of the Latin Empire and thus limited its power from the very first year of its establishment. The power of the Hungarians and to some extent the Serbs prevented significant expansion to the west and northwest. Under Ivan Asen II, Bulgaria once again became a regional power, occupying Belgrade and Albania. In an inscription from Turnovo in 1230, he entitled himself in Christ the Lord Faithful Tsar, an autocrat of the Bulgarians, son of the old Asen. The Bulgarian Orthodox Patriarchate was restored in 1235 with approval of all Eastern Patriarchates, thus putting an end to the union with the papacy. Ivan Asen II had a reputation as a wise and humane ruler and open relations with the Catholic West, especially Venice and Genoa, to reduce the influence of the Byzantines over his country. Turnovo became a major economic and religious center, a third Rome, unlike the already declining Constantinople, as Simeon the Great, during his first empire, Ivan Asen II expanded the territory to the coast of 3 seas, the Adriatic, the Aegean, and the Black, annexed Medea, the last fortress before the walls of Constantinople, unsuccessfully besieged the city in 1235, and restored the destroyed since 1018 Bulgarian Patriarchate. The country's military and economic might declined after the end of the Asian dynasty in 1257, facing internal conflicts, constant Byzantine-Hungarian attacks, and Mongol domination. A weakened 14th century, Bulgaria faced a new threat from the south, the Ottoman Turks, who crossed into Europe in 1354. By 1371, factional divisions between the feudal landlords and the spread of Bogomilism had caused the Second Bulgarian Empire to split into three small tsardoms, Vidin, Turnovo, and Karvuna, and several semi-independent principalities that fought among themselves, and also with Byzantines, Hungarians, Serbs, Venetians, and Genoese. The Ottomans faced little resistance from these divided and weak Bulgarian states. In 1562, they captured Philippolis, and in 1382, they took Sofia. The Ottomans then turned their attention to the Serbs, whom they routed at Kosovo in 1389. In 1393, the Ottomans occupied Turnovo after a 3-month siege. In 1396, the Tsardom of Vidin was also invaded, bringing the Second Bulgarian Empire and Bulgarian independence to an end. In 1393, the Ottomans captured Tarnovo, the capital of the Second Bulgarian Empire, after a 3-month siege. In 1396, the Vidin Tsardom fell after the defeat of a Christian crusade at the Battle of Nicopolis. With this, the Ottomans finally subjugated and occupied Bulgaria. A Polish-Hungarian crusade commanded by a Polish leader of Poland set out to free Bulgaria and the Balkans in 1444, but the Turks emerged victorious at the Battle of Varna. The Ottomans did not normally require the Christians to become Muslims. Nevertheless, there were many cases of forced individual or mass Islamization, especially in the Rhodopes. Bulgarian who converted into Islam. The Pomaks retained Bulgarian language, dress, and some customs compatible with Islam. The Ottoman system began declining by the 17th century, and at the end of the 18th had all but collapsed. Central government weakened over the decades, and this had allowed a number of local Ottoman holders of large estates to establish personal ascendancy over separate regions. During the last 2 decades of the 18th and the first decades of the 19th centuries, the Balkan Peninsula dissolved into virtual anarchy. In many regions, thousands of peasants fled from the countryside either to local towns or to the hills or forests. Some even fled beyond the Danube to Moldova, Wallachia, or southern Russia. The decline of Ottoman authorities also allowed a gradual revival of Bulgarian culture, which became a key component in the ideology of national liberation. A key figure of the revolutionary movement and national hero of Bulgaria, conditions gradually improved in certain areas in the 19th century. Some towns, such as Gabrovo, Triava, Karlovo, Lovech, Skopje, and more, prospered. The Bulgarian peasants actually possessed their land, although it officially belonged to the Sultan. The 19th century also brought improved communications, transportation, and trade. The first factory in the Bulgarian lands opened in Sliven in 1834, and the first railway system started running between Rosay and Varna in 1865. Bulgarian nationalism was emerging in the early 19th century under the influence of Western ideas such as liberalism and nationalism, which trickled into the country after the French Revolution, mostly via Greece. The Greek revolt against the Ottomans, which began in 1821, also influenced the small Bulgarian educated class. But Greek influence was limited by the general Bulgarian resentment of Greek control of the Bulgarian church, and it was a struggle to revive an independent Bulgarian church, which first roused Bulgarian nationalist sentiment. In April 1876, the Bulgarians revolted in the April Uprising. The revolt was poorly organized and started before the planned date. It was largely confined to the region of Plovdiv, though certain districts in northern Bulgaria and Macedonia and in an area of Sliven also took part. The uprising was crushed by the Ottomans, who brought in irregular troops from outside the area. Countless villages were pillaged and tens of thousands of people were massacred, the majority of them in the insurgent towns of Batak and Prosigovo, all in the area of Plovdiv. The massacres aroused a broad public reaction among liberal Europeans such as William Ewart Gladstone, who launched a campaign against the Bulgarian horrors. The campaign was supported by many European intellectuals and public figures. The strongest reaction, however, came from Russia. The enormous public outcry which the April Uprising had caused in Europe led to the Constantinople Conference of the Great Powers in 1876 to 77. Turkey's refusal to implement the decisions of the conference gave Russia a long-awaited chance to realize her long-term objectives with regard to the Ottoman Empire. Having its reputation at stake, Russia declared war on the Ottomans in April 1877. The Bulgarians also fought alongside the advancing Russians. Russia established a provisional government in Bulgaria. The Russian army and the Bulgarians decisively defeated the Ottomans at Chipka Pass and Pleven. By January 1878, they had liberated much of the Bulgarian lands. The Treaty of San Stefano was signed on March the 3rd of 1878 and set up an autonomous Bulgarian principality on the territories of the Second Bulgarian Empire, including the regions of Moesia, Thrace, and Macedonia. Though the state was de jure only autonomous but de facto functioned independently. However, trying to preserve the balance of power in Europe and fearing the establishment of a large Russian client state in the Balkans, the other great powers were reluctant to agree to the treaty. As a result, the Treaty of Berlin in 1878, under the supervision of Otto von Bismarck of Germany and Benjamin Disraeli of Britain, revised the earlier treaty and scaled back the proposed Bulgarian state. The new territory of Bulgaria was limited between the Danube and the Stara Planina range, with its seats at the old Bulgarian capital of Turnovo and including Sofia. This revision left large populations of ethnic Bulgarians outside the new country and defined Bulgaria's militaristic approach to foreign affairs and its participation in 4 wars during the first half of the 20th century. Alexander of Battenberg, a German with close ties to the Russian Tsar, was the first prince of modern Bulgaria from 1879. Everyone had assumed Bulgaria would become a Russian ally. To the contrary, it became a bulwark against Russian expansion and cooperated with the British. Bulgaria was attacked by Serbia in 1885 but defeated the invaders. It thereby gained respect from the great powers and defied Russia. In response, Russia secured the abdication of Prince Alexander in 1886. Bulgaria emerged from Turkic rule as a poor, underdeveloped agricultural country with little industry or tapped natural resources. Most of the land was owned by small farmers, with peasants comprising 80% of the population of 3.8 million in 1900. Agrarianism was a dominant political philosophy in the countryside, as the peasantry organized a movement independent of any existing party. In 1899, the Bulgarian Agrarian Union was formed, bringing together rural intellectuals such as teachers and ambitious peasants. It promoted modern farming practices as well as elementary education. The government promoted modernization with special emphasis on building a network of elementary and secondary schools. By 1910, there were 4,800 elementary schools, 330 lyceums, 27 post-secondary, and 113 vocational schools. From 1878 to 1933, France funded numerous libraries, research institutes, and Catholic schools throughout Bulgaria. In 1888, a university was established. It was renamed the University of Sofia in 1904, where the 3 faculties of history and philology, physics and mathematics, and law produced civil servants for national and local government offices. It became the center of German and Russian intellectual, philosophical, and theological influences. The first decade of the century saw sustained prosperity with steady urban growth. The capital of Sofia grew by a factor of 600%, from 20,000 people to 120,000, primarily from peasants who arrived in the villages who became laborers, tradesmen, and office seekers. Macedonians used Bulgaria as a base, beginning in 1894 to agitate for independence from the Ottoman Empire. They launched a poorly planned uprising in 1903 that was brutally suppressed and led to tens of thousands of additional refugees pouring into Bulgaria. In the years following independence, Bulgaria became increasingly militarized and was often regarded to as the Balkan Prussia, with regard to its desire to revise the Treaty of Berlin through warfare. The partition of territories in the Balkans by the great powers without regard to ethnic composition led to a wave of discontent not only in Bulgaria but also in its neighboring countries. In 1911, Nationalist Prime Minister formed an alliance with Greece and Serbia to jointly attack the Ottomans and revise the existing agreements around ethnic lines. In February 1912, a secret treaty was signed between Bulgaria and Serbia, and in May 1912, a similar agreement was sealed with Greece. Montenegro was also in the pact. The treaties provide for the partition of the regions of Macedonia and Thrace between the Allies, although the lines of partition were left dangerously vague. After the Ottoman Empire refused to implement reforms in the disputed areas, the First Balkan War broke out in October 1912, at the time when the Ottomans were tied down in a major war with Italy and Libya. The Allies easily defeated the Ottomans and seized most of its European territory. Bulgaria sustained the heaviest casualties of any of the Allies while also making the largest territorial claims. The Serbs in particular did not agree and refused to vacate any of the territory they had seized in northern Macedonia. That is, the territory roughly corresponding to the modern Republic of North Macedonia, saying that the Bulgarian army has failed to accomplish its pre-war goals at Adrianople, and that the pre-war agreement on the division of Macedonia had to be revised. Some circles in Bulgaria inclined towards going to war with Serbia and Greece on this issue. In June 1913, Serbia and Greece formed a new alliance against Bulgaria. The Serbian Prime Minister promised Thrace to Greece if it helped Serbia defend the territory it captured in Macedonia. The Greek Prime Minister agreed, seeing this as a violation of the pre-war agreements and privately encouraged by Germany and Austria-Hungary. Tsar Ferdinand declared war on Serbia and Greece on June the 29th. The Serbian and Greek forces were initially beaten back from Bulgaria's western border, but they quickly gained the advantage and forced Bulgaria to retreat. The fighting was very harsh, with many casualties, especially during the key battles. Soon afterward, the Romania entered the war on the side of Greece and Serbia, attacking Bulgaria from the north. The Ottoman Empire saw this as an opportunity to regain its lost territories and also attacked from the southeast. Facing war on 3 different fronts, Bulgaria sued for peace. It was forced to relinquish most of its territorial acquisitions in Macedonia to Serbia and Greece, Adrianople to the Ottoman Empire, and the region of southern Dobruja to Romania. The two Balkan wars greatly destabilized Bulgaria, stopping its hitherto steady economic growth and leaving 58,000 dead and over 100,000 wounded. The bitterness at the perceived betrayal of its former allies empowered political movements to demand the restoration of Macedonia to Bulgaria. And in the aftermath of the Balkan Wars, Bulgaria's opinion turned against Russia and the Western powers, by whom the Bulgarians felt betrayed. The government aligned Bulgaria with the German Empire and Austria-Hungary, which, though this meant becoming an ally of the Ottomans, Bulgaria's traditional enemy, but Bulgaria now had no claims against the Ottomans, whereas Serbia, Greece, and Romania had lands perceived in Bulgaria as Bulgarian. Bulgaria sat out the first year of World War I, recuperating from the Balkan Wars. Germany and Austria realized they needed Bulgaria's help in order to defeat Serbia militarily, thereby opening supply lines from Germany to Turkey and bolstering the Eastern Front against Russia. Bulgaria insisted on major territorial gains, especially Macedonia, which Austria was reluctant to grant until Berlin insisted. Bulgaria also negotiated with the Allies, who offered somewhat less generous terms. The Tsar decided to go with Germany and Austria and signed an alliance with them in September 1915, along with a special Bulgarian-Turkish arrangement. It envisioned that Bulgaria would dominate the Balkans after the war. Bulgaria, which had a land force in the Balkans, declared war on Serbia in October 1915. Britain, France, and Italy responded by declaring war on Bulgaria in alliance with Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottomans. Bulgaria won most military victories against Serbia and Romania, occupying much of Macedonia, advancing into Greek Macedonia, and taking Dobruja from Romania in September 1916. Thus, Serbia was temporarily knocked out of the war, and Turkey was temporarily rescued from collapse. By 1917, Bulgaria fielded more than a quarter of its 4.5 million population and a 1.2 million strong army, and inflicted heavy losses on Serbia, Great Britain, France, the Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Romania. However, the war soon became unpopular with most Bulgarians, who suffered great economic hardship and also disliked fighting their fellow Orthodox Christians in alliance with the Muslim Ottomans. And the interwar period was not too chaotic for Bulgaria, but it is until the Second World War where it gets crazy. Upon the outbreak of World War II, the government of the Kingdom of Bulgaria declared a position of neutrality, being determined to observe it until the end of the war, but hoping for bloodless territorial gains, especially in the lands with a significant Bulgarian population occupied by neighboring countries after the Second Balkan War and World War I. But it was clear that the central geopolitical position of Bulgaria in the Balkans would inevitably lead to strong external pressure by both sides of World War II. Turkey had a non-aggression pact with Bulgaria. Bulgaria joined the Axis powers to regain land in Yugoslavia and to gain a little in Romania. but they were not seen too highly to Germany. Bulgaria did not join the German invasion of the Soviet Union that began on the 22nd of June 1941, nor did it declare war on the Soviet Union. The Bulgarian government was forced by Germany to declare a token war on the United Kingdom and the United States on December 13, 1941, an act which resulted in the bombing of Sofia and other Bulgarian cities by Allied aircraft. On August 1944, Romania left the Axis powers and declared war on Germany, and allowed Soviet forces across its territory to reach Bulgaria. On September 5, 1944, the Soviet Union declared war on Bulgaria and invaded. Within 3 days, the Soviets occupied the northeastern part of Bulgaria, along with the key port cities of Varna and Burgas. Meanwhile, on September 5th, Bulgaria did declare war on Germany. The Bulgarian army was ordered to offer no resistance. The Bulgarian state was under communism rule and as a puppet of the Soviet Union from 1946 to 1991. After the USSR collapsed, Bulgaria turned to a democratic state and had multi-party elections. Bulgaria is now one of the poorer European states and became a member of NATO in March 29, 2004, and of the European Union on January 1, 2007. In 2010, it was ranked 32nd between Greece and Lithuania out of 181 countries in the Globalization Index. The freedom of speech and of the press are respected by the government, but many media outlets are beholden to major advertisers and owners with political agendas. Also see human rights in Bulgaria. Polls carried out 7 years after the country's accession to the EU found only 15% of Bulgarians felt they had personally benefited from the membership. That's about it for the history of Bulgaria. See y'all next time.